All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and we have some pretty bad news today. Of course, as many of y'all may have heard already, defensive tackle, Pro Bowl defensive tackle, let's put some respect on his name, Jonathan Allen has officially been listed as out for season. We're going to talk about why maybe there's a slimmer of hope that maybe he isn't, but from what everybody's saying from multiple sources, it seems like he will be out for season. We're going to dive into that and the impact that will be felt from him no longer being healthy for us. I know a lot of people are disappointed in the season he's had so far, but I'm going to break down why we will definitely miss him. Definitely put some respect on Jonathan Allen's name. Also, I have a Brian Robinson injury update, and also Dan Quinn had a really important message to the team after the Ravens lost. We're going to dive into all that and more, but before we do, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Appreciate all y'all that pulled up to the live stream. Be on the lookout for a call-in show sometime in the middle of this week, maybe tomorrow, maybe Wednesday. I'll keep y'all updated on that. Of course, I will be doing film sessions throughout the week. That will be exclusive to channel members only. Make sure you pull up because I will be live streaming the Panthers game as well, and I'm trying to get back to my 2-3 videos a day bag, so make sure you stay tuned. And without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this video, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so the first time I saw anything, well, of course, we saw Jonathan Allen get hurt in the game, and then we heard I announced live on the stream while watching the game and doing my play-by-play versus the Ravens that Jonathan Allen was out for the rest of the game. And with how quickly he was pronounced out from the time that we heard he got hurt, there was no like questionable to return or nothing like that. He was immediate out. Already knew the injury was probably really bad, especially when we heard that it was a pec injury. Either way, though, Tom Pelissero earlier this morning tweeted, Commanders standout defensive tackle Jonathan Allen is feared to have suffered a significant pectoral injury that will require season-ending surgery per sources. Allen is getting a second opinion. It would be a huge loss for Washington, which sits atop the NFC East at 4-2. And yes, it will be a huge loss. I know some people are saying things like Jonathan Allen wasn't playing well anyway. We're going to get to that soon. But JP Finley also even tweeted, he said, texted from a source, quote, "It's bad," unquote. That is not what you want to hear. Then even John Com tweeted, defensive tackle John Allen tore his pec and is done for the year, source confirms with the Tom Pelissero report. Was optimism last night that it wasn't that bad? Then got an MRI today and it showed the worst possible outcome for Allen. I mean, literally, so basically this is like the worst case scenario. This is as hurt can be when it comes to a pec injury from what we're hearing from everybody right now. Again, he's going to get a second opinion, but I don't think it's going to matter much. So right now, the Washington Commanders honestly have been relatively healthy this season. Like, we've been kind of dipping and dodging from a serious injury situation. Cleveland Farrell has probably missed the most games of our entire team, and he returned against the Ravens and played the first 2 games. He only missed like 2-3 games. Like, overall, we've been a pretty healthy team. Jordan McGee and FL Bada are just on the way from coming back from IR. I mean, Tyler Owens has missed a couple of games as an ace special teamer, but for the most part, again, we really haven't had any serious injuries. Like the Panthers, it seems like they lose a starting front 7 player after every game. Like they have in the season stuff too, not even just a couple of weeks. So, you know, I was thinking about it in my head, the back of my head, like a lot of these teams are suffering injury, especially after you look at the Aiden Hutchinson situation and things like that. I hope he recovers soon as well because he was having such an elite season. Man had like almost 5 sacks in the game, and he's had like a sack in every other game. He was on pace to do like a sack record for the NFL this season. For him to get hurt like that sucks. But my point is, we have been pretty lucky because injury, I mean, you can do everything you can to try to avoid it. You can, you know, with certain diets, certain nutrition, certain exercises, workout programs and things like that, but sometimes it's just wrong place, wrong time and things like that. And again, we've been a very lucky team so far this year. It's purely luck. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, again, there are other factors into it, like I said, nutrition and all of that type of stuff, but most of it is luck. And we have been a lucky team, and now our luck has apparently run out, at least slightly, because again, there are a lot more other teams out there that are even more hurt than us. They've had several starters lost for the rest of the season. You know, so we still can't complain, but it does suck to lose one of our starting defensive linemen, a Pro Bowler in Jonathan Allen, for the rest rest of the season, we've only played 6 games. Jonathan Allen apparently suffered a pec injury during Derrick Henry's 7-yard touchdown run near the end of the third quarter. And Allen was on the sidelines after being evaluated, and he was quickly ruled out of that game. Like, basically immediately, we already knew that it was really bad with the fact that they just went ahead and announced it, like, as soon as he was out. And if you want to know, like, if you actually want to see the exact play, here it is right here. You can find Jonathan Allen. He's a defensive tackle on this play. When you're looking at it, it looks like he got twisted awkwardly. Like when he ended up getting taken down to the ground by a lineman, and it just looks like the way it happened, it was kind of like an awkward fall, and that really sucks, man. That is a really bad situation. And so now, hey, that Johnny Newton pick, everybody was saying it was a luxury when we took him. Like, why would you take a defensive tackle that high in the second round when you have other needs? I mean, look at it now. Now, of course, Adam Peters and Dan Quinn and those guys didn't necessarily predict for this to happen, but now it's nowhere near a luxury. I felt like it already wasn't a luxury because, I mean, just by the way that Jonathan Allen and Deron were playing this season so far, and I felt like Johnny Newton was showing some flashes that Johnny Newton was an important part of this team. There were times in that game, even early on in the first quarter, that Johnny Newton was on the field alongside Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne at the same time. This was not a luxury pick. This is not a backup here. And so now he's definitely not a luxury because now he's a full-blown starter. And thank goodness he's healthy, and thank goodness that he's learning and developing and becoming better as a player every game, because now we need him big time, man. And so right now our depth at defensive tackle is literally Deron Payne, Johnny Newton, and Fadarian Mathis. That's it. That's literally it. And I know Jonathan Allen hasn't played as well as we hoped this season, but first of all, that's losing one of your leaders of the team. So let's go ahead and get that out the way. That's already a big loss off the field wise, leadership wise, and things like that. So just skip over that and just ignore the fact that he has that impact on the team. But secondly, and most importantly, we will miss Jonathan Allen on the field as well, especially against the run. Like, I prefer Johnny Newton when it comes to like getting penetration and getting into the backfield to get the quarterback or the running back behind the line of scrimmage. He's more explosive. He's quicker in that way. But as far as like standing strong, just pure brute strength, and then like two gapping to where you're like against an offensive lineman and you're holding them up and you're looking up with your head and looking to see if the running back may come to this gap or this gap, and then based on which decision the running back makes, you get rid of the guy and make the tackle. That's where you prefer Jonathan Allen even over a guy like a Johnny Newton, because right now Johnny Newton's very explosive and quick, but I wouldn't necessarily label him as strong as like a Jonathan Allen with the two gapping ability. Well, first of all, Jonathan Allen comes from an Alabama defensive line system under Nick Saban where two gapping is all they really do. So he also is nuanced in that area as well, but I would also consider him a stronger player. And just like how the pass rush definitively, I mean, obviously got worse once Dorrance Armstrong got hurt and went out of the game, I feel like the run game is going to take a noticeable hit from Jonathan Allen getting hurt as well. I really believe that firmly. Again, I love Johnny Newton. I think he's going to step up, but there's just certain aspects as to why like Jonathan Allen is better at certain things than the other defensive tackles on this team, and those things will be missed because most importantly, now opposing offenses are going to be like, well, Jonathan Allen's not there, so we don't even have to worry about focusing on stopping this as an offensive line or an offensive coordinator trying to scheme up the run game and things like that. Now we don't even got to worry about this. We can focus on what Johnny Newton is bad at and focus on that entirely. We can focus on what Deron Payne is bad at and make sure we deploy that on offense. We don't even have to worry about what Jonathan Allen's bad at anymore, which spreads us thin. Now we can focus on more centralized, more focused. These are what we're going to attack on this Washington Commanders defensive line. Jonathan Allen definitely adds variety, and I'm telling you right now, we're going to notice him not being there. Again, he hasn't played very well, but you're going to notice him. Shouts out to Chris Russell and my boy Mason Kinahan for bringing up great points on Jonathan Allen's behalf, taking up for him. Chris Russell said, not sure how people don't think Jonathan Allen's reported loss for the season is a huge deal. Sure, he wasn't kicking a word, although he was better against the last 3 opponents before his injury. He averaged in high 30s per game in snaps. That is a lot to replace. Completely agree there. Shouts out to my boy Mason Kinahan. He said, I don't get the hate towards Jonathan Allen right now. Sure, you can make the case that he hasn't lived up to the number on his contract, but to say this team is going to be fine without him is wild. I completely agree. Allen leads the defensive line room in run stops with 10 on the year, followed by Payne with 8. Beyond those, however, the next closest player has 4. Losing your best run stopper on already one of the league's worst run-stopping units is not good. Newton hasn't done enough for me to believe he's going to immediately replace Jonathan Allen's productivity as well. I completely agree with all of that. Now, speaking of Dorrance Armstrong, just real quick, since we got immediate news and injury updates on Jonathan Allen like that quickly, like definitive news, he's gone, I'm hoping it's safe to assume that maybe Dorrance Armstrong and Javonte Jean-Baptiste's injuries aren't anywhere near as severe. Because I feel like they would have been reported along with the Jonathan Allen one out with the out for season news that we just got. I know it's a fallacy to jump to conclusions like that, but I'm just hoping I'm right. We just lost one defensive starter. I really hope we don't lose another. But going back to Jonathan Allen, man, next man up mentality, honestly. It's time for Johnny Newton and for Darian Mathis to grow up, and it's time for Deron Payne to step up. We need greatness out of all three of those guys moving forward, but we also have other options out there to come and, not replace Jonathan Allen directly, but with Deron Payne and Johnny Newton and Fadarian Mathis due to potentially get more snaps than they normally do. With Fadarian Mathis moving from 4th in the defensive tackle depth chart to 3rd, somebody has to step up to 4th, basically. So we have to find replacements, at least body-wise, not Jonathan Allen exactly specifically, but just body-wise. We need a 4th defensive tackle now. We do have Sheldon Day on the practice squad, and if we're looking at free agency, you got Fletcher Cox, the ex-Eagle, but he's so old and he's probably done. He looked like a shell of himself at times last year, but maybe it's better than nothing. You have Brian Moan, who used to be on the Seahawks. You have Hassan Ridgeway, that used to be on the Texans. Al Woods of the Jets. Chris Wormley of the Panthers. There's not a lot of options, to be honest, out there when it comes to defensive tackles, man. There are not a lot of options. And when it comes to Fletcher Cox, SpotTrack even has his estimated market value right now. They say it's $10.2 million on a 1-year contract. No way he gets that, especially at this point. I know we're fairly desperate, but we're not paying Fletcher Cox $10 million this year, dog. I'm willing to give Fletcher Cox an opportunity, but it's not going to be anywhere near $10 million a year. It's going to be a very cheap 1-year prove-it deal, but it's not even a prove-it deal. At his age, it's not even a prove-it deal. It's kind of just whatever extra money you can make from the NFL before you get up out of here and officially retire, you do that type of deal. But it's not a 1-year prove-it deal, because 1-year prove-it deals basically insinuate that this guy has a future in getting a bigger contract later, to where he can play 1 year and prove that he deserves a bigger contract later. That is not in his cards right now. So keep that in mind. Maybe there's some replacements out there, but the defensive tackle free agency options right now are very thin. So really, we're looking internally to see who's going to step up more than anything else. There's not just some random defensive tackle that's out there in free agency that can just save us immediately right now. Fletcher Cox is maybe your best option, but again, that's only for if he's extremely cheap. Now, granted, maybe if we're that serious about contending this year, which I highly doubt Adam Peters is going to go that far, I think there's a chance that we're far more likely chance that we trade for corner, maybe a slight chance that we trade for receiver, but I don't think he's going to go all in, eggs in one basket to go all out this season and trade for a top defensive tackle. I just don't really see that being in our cards this year, but who knows, he may surprise us. But if we get news that we are looking to trade for a defensive lineman, then I'll do a video breaking down some of the defensive linemen on other teams that we could potentially trade for leading up to the trade deadline. Maybe some defensive linemen that are still really good, but on bad teams and potentially want to jump ship and join a potential contender in the Washington Commanders. We'll see, though. I'll keep y'all in contact with that. Maybe we'll do a video on that later on this week. Either way, other injuries for the Commanders to keep a watch on. You have Dorrance Armstrong, like I already said, Javonte Jean-Baptiste. Cleveland Farrell looks like he's good to go, so I'm not really worried about him. You have my dog, special team ace, Tyler Owens. And then, of course, you also have Brian Robinson, which takes me to the Brian Robinson update. Let's see. So Dan Quinn spoke about it immediately after the loss to the Ravens. He said that Brian Robinson's knee was still sore on Saturday despite not practicing all week. And the staff isn't going to play guys if they can't do their thing at full speed. Hopefully, we can turn the corner to get him back to his groove. It's really soon. So, hey, man, I'm hoping that he's right. The Brian Robinson situation is still so weird to me because he was able to play against the Browns, and he only had 7 carries, even though he did have 2 touchdowns. But Dan Quinn made it seem like after the game, like he only had 7 carries, and it's not like the injury got worse. If anything, he should only be getting healthier moving forward. That's what I assumed leading up to this game. So the fact that he was out versus the Ravens, I'm like, how did the injury get worse than what it was against the Browns? He only had 7 carries, and it sounded like we heard good injury health news after the game from Brian Robinson. But we'll see. Hopefully an entire basically 2 weeks off leading up to this Panthers game will be enough for him to be back healthy. But at the end of the day, like I said in my review video after the Ravens lost, my hour-and-a-half long breaking down every single position group and everything that went down in that game, if you haven't checked that out, make sure you go definitely check that out. But in my breakdown, I brought up the point that really, if anything, if Brian Robinson, if it's any question, if it's still up in the air against the Panthers, I mean, not to overlook the Panthers, but you should still be able to beat them without Brian Robinson. Don't risk him being hurt even worse in longer term because you're playing the Panthers. You definitely are going to need him against that ridiculous Bears defense right now, the way that they're playing. So you may want to, when in doubt, sit him another week is my personal opinion. But if he's healthy, go ahead and play him. Get him ready to go. But at the same time, man, I don't know. That Panthers game is looking a little sketchy. I don't think it's worth it to like force them into that game. I don't think it's worth it to force them into any game, but especially that one. And now before we get up out of here, I also wanted to break down some of Dan Quinn's thoughts and like his main message to the team after the Ravens loss. First of all, he said in his press conference immediately after the game, quote, "It certainly was a tough game. That's what we talked about in the locker room. As lopsided as it felt, we were still in the fight at the end. We do have a tough crew with an attitude to battle. There's going to be a lot to learn from this game." Speaking of a lot to learn, he said, quote, "The lessons are there for us to learn and we will learn from them," unquote. And I love that message, that when you play a really good team like that and when you lose to them, no matter whether you got blown out or if it was close, that gives you a great chance to evaluate what your team actually is. Like going against the Panthers next week, you know, if we're really good at certain things, it kind of makes you question, like, are we actually that good at it, or was that just because the Panthers were so bad? Just like the Browns, like with how bad their offense was, we were looking at our defense like, yeah, they had the best game of the season, but was it just because they went against the Browns offense? So when you go against certain caliber of teams, especially on certain sides of the ball, they're just terrible. It's really hard to really gauge and see where you are as a team. And I feel like that Ravens game was like the perfect, okay, this is a Super Bowl contender and it's very obvious what we're good at and what we're bad at, and those are the lessons we need to take from this and learn moving forward. And speaking of those lessons, shouts out to Resh Manuel because he brings up a good point about the whole Benjamin St. Juste situation. He tweeted, "There was a 2nd and 6 when Washington was down 20-13 late in the third. Wagner made a nice open field tackle on Lamar as he had daylight." That was an elite open field tackle. I would argue that was the best open field tackle from any defender on this team all season type of stuff. But he also went on to say 1 yard gain. That was it. I thought that quietly would be the turning point of the game. Then you had the defensive pass interference on Benjamin St. Juste the next play. Next thing you know, the Ravens go down and score. It is 27-13. And I believe also that may have been the drive where Jonathan Allen got hurt. So if we get off the field right there, Jonathan Allen does not suffer a season-ending injury. We also don't go down 2 touchdowns. And it's a completely, not only just a different game, but a completely different season for us. It's just amazing how small little things like that can add up. So I'm bringing up that point to prove that the point that the smallest singular play can completely change the trajectory of not only the game, but an entire season. And that's why we need to learn as many lessons as possible, to Dan Quinn's point. Because even though the refs sold us on that play, that was not pass interference by Benjamin St. Juste. You even have non-Commanders Twitter high-profile Twitter like football analysts and draft analysts and things like that saying that was not a pass interference. The refs really hated. The refs were hating all game, but again, I'm not about to get into that again. But basically the point is we need to put ourselves into better situations, and it can be just one lesson that we didn't learn from that can derail all of the other lessons that we've learned from and all of the other hard work that we've put in. So we need to make sure that we focus on learning every lesson possible, because you can never know what that one lesson would be that you didn't fix, that you didn't improve on, that could end up harming you way worse than it should, where small problems can become magnified. You just never know, man. So that the message is be prepared for everything, improve in every way possible, because you just never know. Shouts out to them refs though, man. That felt like a Baltimore home game, but it is what it is, man. But that's the end of this video. Please let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Of course, let me know how you feel about the whole Jonathan Allen situation. Or are you on the side where you feel like, Jonathan Allen hasn't been that good anyway, so what are we really gonna miss? Or are you like me and some of the people that I quoted in this video where it's like, I'm telling you, you will miss Jonathan Allen more than you think right now. He hasn't had the best season, but he will be missed. Let me know how you feel about that, how you feel about Brian Robinson's situation. Do you think we should force him to play against the Panthers or just hold him until he's fully healthy against the Bears? And let me know how you feel about Dan Quinn's message to the team as well. I'm going to try my best to read and reply to as many comments as possible. I'm going to be busy today, but I'm at least trying to get another 1 or 2 videos done today for y'all. So make sure y'all check back on this channel later on in the day. I really appreciate y'all. Again, make sure you do not leave this video without stiff arming that like button. I'm going to catch y'all later. I'm out.